Alright, so this is my SkyBox. Turned into a Coke machine, obviously. And the compressor stopped working. So, what I did first was I bought a new cap thinking that that is what it was because the compressor wasn't running. It was not that. However, this was pretty easy to replace, and I'll put a link below where you can get that. But basically, you're going to be disconnecting these wires. There's basically three of them. You got the white, the red, and a black that's holding up to the compressor. And then the wiring is pretty straightforward. Same thing, you're just kind of like following it as you're taking it off. And then you need this. This is going to be your fill port. I'll put the link to that. And you're going to be removing both these lines. This one is the old fill line, so you won't need that. And then basically what I did was I found a Alexa, stop. I found a Zell compressor that's going to match that. So hookups are the same. The orientation is a little bit different, but it's pretty easy with these bolts to pull out. That's the old fill port, you know. Then that's going to be, I guess, your high side, and then that's going to be your low side, your low pressure. But the orientation is a little bit different. But I'm going to cut these lines and set up so I have enough piping. And actually, I cut this one completely through so you can kind of see it. And you want to cut it high so none of your compressor oil leaks out of this, because that would be bad. And then you're going to put a vacuum pump on it, and I'll kind of show you all that stuff. But you want to smooth these lines down with some sandpaper and make them nice and smooth. And then I'm going to remove this line, and then I'll show you the basic transplant from there back over to this one. And again, it's not super difficult. It was just a matter of matching up the compressor that's going to fit inside there. And if you take a look below, if I can get the angle right. So there's 4 bolts that hold that compressor in. So you can kind of see them like right there and there. And then you got 2 on the front. So it's going to come out pretty easy. We just have to put a torch on these little joints here, loosen up the solder, and be able to pull them right out. And obviously make sure that you are putting a vacuum pump on it. I got my kit in here, but I'll show you basically what you need, but it's not terrible. I think this kit was about 150 bucks. Got it on Amazon. And like I said, these SkyBoxes, those compressors are starting to go on them all, so you can pick these soda machines up pretty inexpensively, and our family loves it. But anyway, stay tuned. Okay, so I cut both lines with a Dremel tool, and I'm going to sand them down. But first we're going to have to make cuts on this one. So we're going to make a cut right behind here. So we're going to reuse this tubing to put the thin line in on this side. And then I'm going to put a cut right here, and I'm going to end up having to ream open this end so we can put the 2 copper pieces together. But anyway, just give you kind of an idea of what we're doing. And best thing I've found to use is probably a Dremel tool. Let me get the RPMs a little bit down a little bit. So make a quick cut right here. So that makes a pretty nice clean cut there. And then, like I said, we're going to make a cut over on this side. Alright, so it's almost all the way through. I'm going to turn the camera off so I don't cut through this other line, so I can use both hands. So stay tuned. Alright, so I cut through both lines, and now what I'm going to do is basically just like sand them down to get all the rough edges off that. And like I said, I'm going to end up having to clean this up a little bit better. So when I put the new piece in, I'm going to take this and I'm going to widen this up so it can kind of slip over the top of that line. So that's the next step. All right, with some light grit sandpaper, you're going to clean the ends of these off. Just kind of get all that paint and garbage off the end of that. So when we solder, the solder is going to have something to really hold on to. And we're looking for is so it looks like new copper again. Around a couple times. That's pretty good. Okay, we'll clean it up a little bit more before we solder again. But next is going to be getting all these bolts out and connected. Oh, I also cut the ground wire because that was pretty oxidized on there, that screw, and it was stripping. So we'll just strip that and make a new connection later. And these are 10 millimeter, so I basically put an open-end wrench on top here, and then putting a regular 10 millimeter ratchet underneath, and then you just work each nut and bolt off. Okay, so the only complicated part I ran into is I had to take the top of the unit off its base, and I had to take the bottom plate off, which are basically sitting here. So basically there's 4 screws to be able to get the compressor out. But other than that, so far, so good. All right, it's also easier to put this compressor back in on its side. It's empty, so you don't have to worry about all the oil and stuff leaking out. Not that big of a deal. But make sure that you tighten up all the nuts and bolts. Like I just found this one's loose, so let me tighten that up. But that is how you get that pump, the compressor back in. All right, next we'll flip it back upright again. All right, so with the line that you're going to hook up in the back, you can kind of see it way back there. Now it's in focus. It's going to be this, your line right here, which we cut off, and that goes to, I guess that's the expansion part. But what you're going to do is get like a small file, triangular file, and you want to kind of ream that hole out a little bit more. So when you put it up there, it's going to be able to fit in there properly. And what you do is you cut a piece off the old compressor, and then you just test the fit before you go. And then with these 2 pieces, I'm going to cut that off a little bit closer so I can bend these valves back in, and then I'll put a small piece in between here to fit. But I'll show you. I'll show you the end product as we're going through. All right, so I got everything soldered together. Put the vacuum pump on it, and it's holding at -30. So we'll just let it go for a little while and make sure that holds completely, and then we'll roll the wiring back together again. All right, so probably a little while's gone past, and we're definitely holding vacuum. So next we'll hook all the electrical back up and charge up. Okay, so since this takes 134, you can use like a can of your regular automotive refill. You can get it at your auto center, auto store, and this one has a nice gauge on it, See where I got that little arrow pointing where it should be at like 70 degrees. We're not quite 70 in here, but we're pretty close right now. So as the compressor is coming online, it's taking a little bit more. So I just give it a quick squirt. And then that needle's got to stabilize a little bit as it's running. And you can tell, like, you can feel the lines, they're getting cold. Especially that one feels a little warm, that one's definitely getting cold. So that's basically about it. So we have the unit up and running. And like I said, it's about 65, 70 degrees in here. And so it's 59 inside. So we'll just check on that in a little while. We'll see how it's doing. Because I do know these units did take a long time to get down into that like 35, 40 degree temperature range. Anyway, but that was it. Pretty simple. Overall, just a little time consuming and need a little bit of patience. Alright, just about putting everything back together, but you can tell I have it at the top end of the gauge. That's your 134A. And that's your capacitor configuration, a 3-in-1. So you got the white to the left, red to the right, and then black in the center. And a good way to make sure everything's still in the process of cooling down, but that compressor, you can feel it vibrating. It's going to be warm. And then these lines, especially this thing, this is going to be cool to the touch, so you know it's starting to circulate. But it's going to take a while. These weren't really big units to start off with, so it will take a while for that temperature to go down. And then that is your temperature pressure chart, so you can kind of know how to do your 134A. Let's go to the front. And still cooling, 59.4 and dropping. We'll check back a little bit, see what that goes down to. Alright, so the compressor's been running for a few minutes, and you can definitely see the temperature dropping down. So we'll do another temperature test in a couple minutes and see what we got. Alright, so probably about 15 minutes later, and you can see the temperature still dropping. So I would say this compressor is definitely working. So transplant was a success. Okay, hopefully that helps everybody out there. Any questions, comments, please leave below, and thank you for watching and subscribing.